Welcome to the Wealth by Choice podcast. My name is Valerie Shira, and I'm a stay-at-home mom who turned entrepreneur. Each week, we bring you stories and wisdom from individuals who have broken the code to generating wealth. Thanks so much for being here with me today. Let's get started. All right, so today I have with me Bailey Kramer. Bailey is a real estate investor, entrepreneur, real estate agent, a co-host, and a coach. Bailey uncovered his passion for real estate early in his life and bought his first investment property at just 20 years old. I was probably tying my shoes at 20. Since then, Bailey has focused on growing his portfolio of long-term rentals and short-term rentals. Bailey has also founded his own co-hosting company and manages 30 Airbnb units in 4 different states. In his free time, Bailey enjoys traveling, playing sports, and eating delicious food. I like that one. So yeah, I read your bio and I just think, oh my goodness, we got to start with one question. How old are you now, Bailey?
Yeah, thanks again for the intro. Right now, I am 22.
22. Oh my goodness. So in 2 years, that's a massive amount of accomplishment. I'm really excited to break it down today and to have you here.
Thank you.
But let's start by maybe just tell me a little bit about what even got you started. Like, I'll be honest, most 20-year-olds are partying, going to school, doing a bunch of things. It really sounds like you took a different path. Can we break that down? What got you started? Why did you even think of going this direction?
Yeah, for sure. There was a ton of things from childhood that got me interested in entrepreneurship. So before I even got introduced to real estate, which I'll talk about how I learned about that, but it was all, my sights were just like, how can I be the boss? How can I make a lot of money? How can I just like control my time, be where I want, when I want it? I think as a kid, there was definitely like a handful of things that piled up, and some things I don't even know where they came from. Like I remember my family, we had a boat, and when I lived in Tampa, we'd go out on our boat, and my dad would say, like, he'd point to a huge yacht and say, "Is that what you want?" And I'd say, "No, way bigger than that." And then he'd point to like these humongous yachts, and I'm not even a big boat guy. Maybe I was bigger boat guy at the time, but I was just like, I want more. I want bigger. I want better. And not in a materialistic way, because I don't even really like boats that much now, but just in the mindset of like, if they can do it, why can't I do it? So that's always been like my mindset. I played baseball as a kid, and I was always the person, if we were losing, I'm like, guys, we can still win this game. Everyone's like literally crying on the bench. This is like middle school. Everyone's like literally in tears. I'm like, yo, let's go. The game's not over. So I've always had that mindset. And then Shark Tank was huge for me as well. I cannot underestimate Shark Tank. That was like, you could see people in real life like have businesses, invest in businesses. I thought that was super cool. So fast forward, and by the way, I actually never did like any of like the selling candy, cutting lawns. I always actually wanted to, but I was way too afraid because I was like, if I sell candy, if I cut lawns, it's not going to let me make like $1 million. And that was a huge mistake of mine, actually. I probably should have just like started. That's what I always tell people. Just like start. You're not going to make $1 million day one anyway, so just do it. But long story short, when I went to college, my parents moved me in. Right when they left, I made a video. And I actually posted this video on my Instagram a couple months ago. And it was literally just like, I just leaned it against the wall. And basically in the video, I was like, first day of college, parents just left. Like, these 4 years are for me to build a business, to create a business, so that I say in the video, in 20 years, when I'm 40, I don't have to be sitting in a desk. I can be sitting on the beach. So I knew like from the moment I was going to college, like I was building a business. The reason why I made that video is because I was too afraid to tell everybody what I actually wanted to do. Because when I did tell people like, oh, and people were like, what do you want to do in college? What are you studying? And I'm like, well, I'm going to start my own business. They're like, yeah, no, that's super cool. But like, what are you going to do after college? Right. And like, it got to a point where no one understood it. So I was like, I just got to make this video for me. And then I posted it 4 years later, which is cool. But to answer the question of how I actually got into real estate. So I took all this entrepreneurship drive. And my sophomore year, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I was like, holy freaking moly. Like, this is incredible. Like everything he said, I was like, yup, that makes total sense. And then, I don't know if it was before the book, after the book, but I looked up who the author was, Robert Kiyosaki. And whether it's true or not, I have no idea still today, but it's said on the internet that he's worth like hundreds of millions of dollars, and a lot of his wealth is from real estate. So that was like, this guy's a genius. I like the book. Real estate, I want to look more into that. And that's truthfully like what my intro to real estate was from just that book. None of my family, none of my friends do real estate. So this was like my sophomore year of college was seriously like the first time I ever like learned about this concept of rental properties and building wealth through real estate.
Wow. Okay. So just in there, I'm pulling two major things, that most people miss out on. And number one, you didn't have a cap on what you thought you could do. I love that. That's huge. That's really a big deal. I think, most people growing up, they think, well, I couldn't be that. So what if I just did this? I mean, that would be cool. Maybe they don't even think about that. They just think, well, I'll go to school and I'll be X, Y, and Z. And that's the cap. They don't even think about, they stop themselves at that level. And I love that. You're very clear about that. Even from a childhood, what your parents are saying, would you want that? Would you want that? You didn't have a cap. And that's one big thing I'm pulling from this. And the second is you were focused. You knew what you wanted in the end. Most people, I think they just take it one step at a time. Like, what am I going to do in high school? After I'm done with high school, okay, well, what do I want to do in college? Well, I don't know. This sounds interesting. That sounds interesting. I'm going to take this next step. But they don't really know what the long-term plan is. And so they aren't focused on that long term. They're focused on the little decision. And so when you make those decisions, it's here, then it's there, then it's over, and you moved a lot, but it may have been in a circle. It may not have been in a straight line. So, I mean, those are two big things that I'm pulling from your story.
For sure. And I want to share one more quick story that was actually in the mix of that, because it's pretty deep, but it's really important. And I think like a lot of people, most people are not, the story I'm about to share, most people aren't going through, everyone's going through their own stuff. So I'm not saying this is the worst thing in the world, but what made me really like, this is probably like the biggest, out of them all, the biggest factor of them all. So I was born in Florida, moved to Wisconsin, moved back to Florida, back to Wisconsin, and then I went back to school for Florida. So I've been back and forth like a handful of times. And the reason why I moved back and forth so many times was because of my dad's job. He had a great job, but he was a 9-to-5 employee. So when we moved from Florida to Wisconsin the first time, he got a promotion. Then when we went from Wisconsin to Florida, got another promotion. We stayed in Florida for a couple years, and we didn't really like it that much. So my family moved back to Wisconsin, except my dad still had his 9-to-5 job in Florida. We didn't have any there was no family issues, nothing like that. It was literally just we liked Wisconsin better. We didn't like where we were in Florida. So we moved back to Wisconsin. My dad kept that 9-to-5 job in Florida, like a desk job in person every single day, and he would fly to Wisconsin every single weekend.
Oh my goodness.
Then Florida, so he would do Monday through Thursday, sometimes Friday in Florida, then Friday to Sunday back to Wisconsin, literally every single weekend. Wow. So from that, that went on for literally years, I don't know, 5-10 years, maybe 8 years in that range. But that from that too, huge motivation of I cannot make money dependent on a location. That's number one.
I love that.
And it was a lot more and it's a lot more personal now because, just to finish the story, I knew I could not be dependent on a location. So that was also a huge drive. And then fast forward to when I got into real estate, Red Rich Dad Poor Dad, me and my girlfriend were actually doing long distance. So I was in Florida, she was in Wisconsin. We made it through long distance. Now we live together in North Carolina. But what's, I guess, not funny, but ironic is now she's going to grad school there. So she has a lot of friends and they're all doing long distance with their significant others now. And they're like, yeah, well, they have the job in X state. They have the job over here. They have this over there. And I'm like, I can do my thing from anywhere. So it was it's the reason why I share this story is because people don't realize that you will be trapped unless if you intentionally don't trap yourself. So when I'm talking to her, her friends are like, yeah, my significant other we're doing long distance because he or she's in a job in another state. I'm like, this is why I got to share the story because you will get trapped unless you
Mm-hmm.
you intentionally untrap yourself.
Right, right.
So just wanted to
And
share
you know
that.
what you're pointing out there is you determined one of your core values. Your value was freedom. It sounds like you
Yeah,
wanted the ability to earn a really good salary or income, but you wanted the freedom to go anywhere. To some people that
yeah,
may not be, that may be different. They may like the location they're at, but just having the ability to determine what your values are gave you the ability to focus on
for sure.
what you're going for. And I really like that. That's something that Jonathan and I have really done with our life. And we have very similar. We want the freedom to be able to travel. I love to travel. We want to take the kids across the states. We want to be able to go places, and we know we can't do that if he was a equipment operator. You have to be there.
Right.
You have to go to work. And so that was something that we got into real estate for. And we do similar to what you're doing, and then we also have the virtual assistant agency, and we're able to
Right.
manage it from anywhere. So just for those listening, determining what matters the most to you, even writing them down so that these are my core values. I may not be there now, but every decision I make, it's going to steer me. It's going to pull me one step closer, so that eventually these core values will be the life that I'm creating for myself. And that's a
For
really good
sure.
story. I appreciate you sharing that. We touched a little bit about real estate. Maybe you could tell me, in general, why did you pick real estate? What are the benefits of real estate? And then even more specific, why short-term rentals? That's really interesting as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so the real estate thing, like, truthfully came just from Rich Dad Poor Dad. When I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, you can like make money without actually having, you can, once you buy a property and you rent it out and you have the management in place, it's like it's a machine running without you, right? So I like that aspect of it. Obviously, there's a lot of tax. Like, just from reading, there was a tax benefit, appreciation, depreciation. There were so many different avenues within real estate as well. So there's like, you can fix and flip, you can wholesale, you can long-term rent, you can short-term rent. Then there's different asset classes. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like, there's endless opportunity. I realized, and then I obviously I did some research after the book. I'm like, okay, like real estate is actually how a lot of people either made their money, or a lot of people put their money when they made a lot of money. So I was like, I'm definitely in a good area. The way that I picked short-term rentals was actually completely by accident. Basically, at Red Rich Dad Poor Dad, found bigger pockets. So I started just learning like more like in depth, all these different things. Then I started networking with a ton of different people. And my biggest takeaway from everybody that I talked to was basically like go bigger, faster, and really get into multifamily. Like that was, so like the stories I heard was like, I was in single family for 5 years, and then now I'm in multifamily, and I wish I just didn't do single family, I just did multifamily, right? So I heard that so many times, I'm like, well, if you wish you were in multifamily 5 years ago, why don't I just start it now? Long story short, I tried to get in it for about 6 months. I networked my butt off, talking to brokers, underwriting deals, and I didn't get any traction. Not to say I wouldn't have, but I didn't yet. And this was going into my junior year of college. And I was like, all right, I have about a year and a half left of school, and I need to build a business and income stream. Not something I just talk about, something I'm actually doing and making money from in the next year and a half. And nothing's to get rich quick, any faster real estate. But I saw multifamily just being too slow for my year and a half runway that I had. So then I made the pivot to single family, because those deals you can close them a lot faster and a lot easier than a big multifamily deal. So I was doing single family. Fix and flips, really any way we can make money single family wise, I was doing it. Then I found a property with a couple partners that was on a lake, and it wasn't really going to be a great long-term rental, wasn't going to be a great fix and flip, or it was just too big and risky for us at the time. So then we're like, well, what if we made this into a short-term rental? And we literally we did it out of a whim kind of thing. Complete beginner, complete luck. Like I was picking up free furniture I found on Facebook Marketplace. It was nuts, but turned out to be a really, really solid deal. So then I was like, okay, like this, I see, again, nothing to get rich quick, but I see how you can make more money a little bit faster in the short-term rental game. And that's what like launched it off for me.
That makes a lot of sense. Something that I think a lot of people don't understand is if you don't know real estate, it can appear to be that you get into real estate, you start making money, and it's happily ever after. But that's not really the case. You have to have one of two things. You either have to have a really high paying job and you can just put money into real estate, or you're going to have to get into real estate and in some way create a job in that field. And it's one or the two. You're either putting money into it or you're putting effort into it. And that's where the money's actually found. It's in one of those two. And so with me and Jonathan, we did something similar. We kind of got into it. We did like fourplex, duplex, small multifamily by ourselves. But then it was like we started realizing, okay, the options are we're going to either create a business in here, either like what you're doing is managing properties, short-term rentals, or we're managing long-term rentals, or we're finding deals and we're getting acquisition fees. In some way, you're going to create a job in that field until you get that momentum, and then you start investing in deal after deal, and then long-term, that money starts paying for things. But I think sometimes there's a little bit of misunderstanding and just a shallow knowledge of real estate. You think that you just put some money into it and eventually you're just gonna it's a bigger picture than that, and I love that you broke that down. One other thing that you mentioned is you've referred to the book Rich Dad Poor Dad a couple times. It's amazing that a book can change a life, and it could be a different book for every person. And I used to hate reading. I'll be honest. I was not a big reader. I'm an outside girl. I like to do stuff outside. But the past, it's been about over a year, I started reading one book a week, and it was just purely for the discipline of finishing what I start, because I would tend to just nibble through these books and not really get the whole picture. And that has really been a game changer for me, seeing the perspective of either wealthy people or successful people or people who are where I want to be. And I like that. You've really been able to take a book and essentially it changed your whole direction. It gave you a focus. It gave you a clear direction, and you followed after that. Is there anything specific that you think of other than what we've covered that you did differently than most 20-year-olds, and it could be at any age. I mean, you're 20, but really anybody can do this. But what did you do that you feel like was just completely different than maybe some of your friends?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing, I would say like two pieces. The first thing is that I just took small steps throughout the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are just like, when I get a high paying job, then I will start learning about real estate. Or like for me to get to where I'm at now, it obviously, I mean, everything's relative, but like it took time. It was not a get rich quick by any means. But a lot of it was like, just, I networked with so many people. I just kept on like moving the needle forward. And from each conversation I had, it led me to a different person or another connection. Mm-hmm. So the way I even found the mastermind group, the MIH mastermind that I joined, was I was messaging someone on Bigger Pockets. I said, hey, you know any virtual meetups happening? He pointed me over here. I got a whole different group of people here, learn from them, learn what they're doing, exposed to a whole different network. So I would say the first thing is moving the needle forward, just in any way possible, mm-hmm. being obsessed with it. Like I was listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast literally every second I possibly could, going to class, on the way back from class. In college, I didn't party, went out a handful of times, but for the most part, I was just like super disciplined and focused on what I wanted. And then I'd say the last thing, and this is something that I'm still like adjusting as I'm going, but everyone's like, dude, I want to get into real estate. Can you please help me get into real estate? And I'm like, hold on. Why do you actually want to get into real estate? Like, what's the whole purpose for you? And not really like, your whole why, I think that's important, but there's so many different things within real estate that like you have to pick a strategy within real estate if you're interested in real estate that aligns with what you're actually trying to accomplish. So right now, for example, or I'll give you like the start. When I was first getting into it, my whole goal was like, I need $5,000 cash flow per month coming in. What strategies should I pursue? I picked multifamily. That was probably not the best strategy for me because I was going to be like a very minor partner on huge deals. And not that I couldn't have done it, it just wasn't the most efficient way to get there. So, and then today, my new goal is $10,000 per month in passive. Well, we'll leave out the word passive. $10,000 per month from rentals that I solely own. So now it's like, okay, what's the fastest, easiest path for me to get there? Instead of just saying like, I want to get into multifamily, like why? Like multifamily could absolutely accomplish my goals. But there's a handful of other things with like financing that I'm looking at with so many, and how much capital I have, et cetera. So just like picking the strategy that actually aligns with you. I think real estate can actually work for literally anybody in any situation. But I was talking to a buddy literally a handful of days ago, and he's like, dude, can you mentor me? I'm like, what, in what? He goes, in Airbnb. I go, and I asked him like a little more about like how much money he has, how much, like what his goals are, what his cash flow goals are. And I was like, dude, you don't want to get an Airbnb right now. If I gave you $500 a month in or $1,000 a month in cash flow, you need like to wholesale or fix and flip because you need like bigger chunks of money coming in and you already have a steady job kind of thing. So everyone's in a different scenario. I would just say picking the strategy that makes sense for you at the time, and you can absolutely switch it. Once I hit my $10,000 cash flow number, I will be switching my goal, but I'm just going to stay focused until I get there.
Okay, yeah, I love that right there. Focus until I get there. I recently interviewed another guest, and one thing that she said that has really stuck with me is there is no plan B. It's plan A until it works. And I know that Brandon Turner has said this multiple times. You can make money in any area. Like if you pull one field, I mean, it could be anything, not just real estate. Someone is making money in that field. So it is possible.
100%.
It's just, are you going to stick with it until you figure it out? So many people, myself included, I'll start things and then it'll be like, I'll hit this and I'll hit that. And I'll be like, you know what? I don't think this is for me. I'm going to change. Well, all of that effort now is wasted. And now I'm starting over. Right. So then I try this until I hit a cap where I'm uncomfortable or it requires me to do something that I'm not good at. And I think, oh, this isn't my passion. I'm going to try this. So then I start over. And so then you look back and there's years of absolutely just wasted time trying to find that one thing that is going to propel you forward. In reality, it was just not sticking through it. You may have just been, if you've read the book, 3 feet from gold, but literally 3 feet from gold if you would have pushed on. And so going back to the thing you focus on, you knew this is what I want. This is the goal I want. I know my core values. I want to be free. So anything that is given to me that does not align with that is an absolute no.
Right.
And then you just took a step and you kept trying. Earlier you mentioned 6 months not finding a deal. That would be enough to eliminate over half, for sure. Over half would be like, okay, this isn't working. We're going to try something different. But instead, you looked at it and you said, okay, this isn't working. What do I need to change to make it work? Do I need to tweak this, change this? It wasn't like completely stop. It was just, what do I need to shift? So yeah, that's really good. Now, you've mentioned a couple times, you're doing a co-hosting company, right? Do you train? Is that what you coach in? Can you tell me a little bit about that? What do you do in as far as that goes?
Yeah, so basically just to finish up the story, like once I got into the single family, I got those 2 Airbnbs. I was entering my senior year of college, and I was like, all right, I got a little bit of money coming in. Nothing major. I don't know, like probably $1,000, maybe $2,000 coming in from the 2 Airbnbs. And I was like, all right, well, this is definitely a good start. But like, how can I just keep this thing moving? And someone actually reached out to me and said, hey, I have a friend who actually needs somebody to manage their Airbnb. Can you do it? And I'm like, honestly, yeah, because I just spent all this time learning about how to do it for my now 2 properties. Why not? So I just basically added their property to the systems already built, or I was starting to build. And then the property that this investor bought was already furnished. So it's like literally the day he closed on it, I literally pressed go live on Airbnb, and literally I cannot make this up. Within 5 minutes, we got a booking for that day. Or actually, sorry, for the next day,
goodness.
Because it was Thanksgiving. I completely messed up the prices. I made it like $100 a night for this beautiful house. The owner was super pissed. It was completely my fault. We had to rush to like get some final touches on it. But long story short, after like the month ended, or about a month later when I got paid or whatever, I got about $1,000 from that. And I'm like, holy moly. I didn't put any money in. Just put in a little bit of time, but not really much time because the property's already set up. And then I just like kind of answered the guest messages. And then I was like, this is kind of cool. another person referred me to another person in the same market.
Wow.
And this was in North Carolina, and I was like, holy moly. He paid me $2,000 to set up the property. And then after the month was over, I got another $1,000. I'm like, I'm not even putting in any of my own money. This is pretty cool. So then I was like, okay, co-hosting, which is basically managing Airbnbs, is the route that I want to take to, I want that to be my income stream. Like I want that to be like my job until I turn it into a real business. That's what I was like, this is like a perfect match. So then I started doing co-hosting and actually like the first couple clients were accidental. Then I actually started pursuing co-hosting clients and actually building a business behind it. So fast forward now, I've got 30 Airbnbs. And then I also teach people basically how to start and grow a co-hosting business. And it's like, it's definitely not a business for everybody. It's to me, like the way I see it is, if you're looking to build an income stream and get real and be in the real estate business, I think it's awesome. It's recurring revenue. The other huge benefit to it too is now that I have a lot of Airbnbs that I manage, every time I buy an Airbnb, I mentioned this, I have a team of 4 people that manage my Airbnbs for me that are like inside my company. So it's like, there's a lot of work I had to put in on the front end, but now every time I buy a property, I kind of just hand it off and then they manage it, and then I'm still making money from it. So that's like the overall overall picture there.
That's awesome. And it's almost like, I don't remember where I read this, taking the waste, the byproduct of what you're doing and making money from it. So you're doing short-term rentals, you're starting to earn money, and then somebody else wants to learn how to do it. So the byproduct of that knowledge, you're going to make money by teaching people. That's amazing. I love that. So many people don't even think about the byproduct of what they're doing, whether it's knowledge or, if you're in woodworking, what do you do with the sawdust? All those byproducts can be monetized in one way or another. I love that.
Especially 2022 or soon to be 2023. I mean, the digital space is so big, and it just helps everything.
Absolutely.
Like and it doesn't take, depending on what you're doing, it doesn't take that much extra work, because like once you build the business and continue to grow the business, you have everything in place. And the cool thing about co-hosting too is like you can do it remotely. I do it all remotely, and so it's relatively easy to teach people how to do it remotely as well, because I've already built all the systems, refined them, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. Now, I'm going to be honest. You make this sound so easy. Was it actually easy? You know how some people are like, oh, Bailey just had everything handed to him. In 2 years, from nothing to where he's at now, it's not that easy for me. And so they automatically discount themselves and they feel like I can't do it because I didn't have it as easy as Bailey. Give me a little of what your thoughts are on that. Yeah,
I would say it was definitely not easy for sure. There was really nothing easy about it. Took from and to also give a perspective here, from the moment I read Rich Dad Poor Dad to the time I actually like bought my first property, it took a year and 2 months, or maybe a year and 2 or 3 months. So a whole year and then some. I was like continually obsessed about real estate. So I prefaced it with, this is not a get rich quick. To get my first property, it literally took over a year, and I was laser focused on it the entire time. I didn't just take like a couple months off I was focused on real estate. So it just took persistence, and going back, the way I could have done it a lot faster was, instead of focusing on all these different multifamily, fix and flips, long-term rentals, I could have just said, or again, in hindsight's 2020, of course, but I could have said, okay, what's my quickest way, my easiest or most simple way to $5,000 in cash flow, given the resources I have? Maybe I would have wholesaled a couple deals to build some capital. Maybe I would have gotten a co-hosting and build an income stream. I don't know. It's every situation's different, but definitely, it was definitely not easy. Definitely took time. The beautiful thing about it all, though, is the hardest, the first one is always the hardest, whether you're buying a property, whether you are co-hosting a property, whatever you're doing, the first one's the hardest. Once you have that first one, it's like, it's a game changer, because now you have the confidence, you have the credibility, you have the proof, and then it really starts to snowball. But so it's really just like start with that first one. If you can get that first one in less than a year and 2 months, you're way ahead of me. So I'd say just focusing on the first one is key in anything.
And really define easy. I mean, if you look at the scope of working a full-time job until you're 65, that is not easy. But so many people they'll choose that over a year of dedicated, unwavering, roll up your sleeves until you become successful in one specific area, or actually mastering something. You know, it's so easy to be mediocre in what you do or just be comfortable. That's the worst part, is once you get comfortable, to actually break out of that in order to get more, or become uncomfortable now so that when you get older, you won't be uncomfortable. That's hard, you know. And so what you did, you know, it was hard for that year, but if people will look at the whole picture, the whole scope of things, it was easy, but they could do it too if they put in that undivided attention and focus.
Right. For sure. Yeah. And on that note, like, I'm the type of guy, I can't sit still and not be thinking about something. So like working a job, like a 9-to-5 job, I literally could not do it. People were like, if this fails, are you going to, I'm like, you don't understand. Like, it's literally not even an option.
Sure.
Even if all goes to zero, it's not an option for me. And then with that being said, like I do work hard. I wake up at 5:30 basically every single day, Monday through Friday. I do put in a lot of work. I'm not afraid to work long hours either. But the work that I do, truthfully, is so much easier and so much more fun, in my opinion, than so many of my friends who work 9-to-5 jobs that don't have the ability to have control of where they're going. I can literally say right now, like in January, I'm going to work to make X amount of money, and it could be whatever amount of money. And if I personally put in the work to get there, and I get everything right around me, I can do it. For people working just the 9-to-5 job, which, let me start with this. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with a 9-to-5 job, especially just starting out. Like that's where if I didn't read Rich Dad Poor Dad until senior year, I don't even know what would happen. Maybe I'd be in a completely different business because I was very serious about not getting one. But I know plenty of people who start with a 9-to-5 job, they work it a couple years, and then they're able to transition. But I always just caution people not to use it as like a crutch. Well, I'm going to stay in a couple of years and then I'm going to do this. So it's kind of a weird balance. I don't want to say like having a 9-to-5 job is the worst thing in the world, because you can get a lot better loans than I can get for mortgages. So there's definitely pros and cons, but I would just say like no excuses. No, in a year, in 2 years, you got to do it. Like you got to start at least ASAP.
Sure. And really, I mean, like we said earlier, it really boils down to your core values. I mean, some people don't, they like the 9-to-5 for various reasons and for what, might fit into their life. And if they still take that, say their goals and their core values, and they still focus on becoming really good at that one thing, that will give them freedom. I mean, you have a lot more to say when you're an expert at what you do versus, either mediocre or just comfortable. And so, I love that you pointed that out. You mentioned real quick earlier, you touched on mentorship. You had a mentor. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Did that play a big part in your success?
Oh yeah. So as far as mentorship goes, especially in the beginning, I'm still doing it now, but like way more important in my opinion in the beginning, trying to get to that first one, is just being surrounded by people who are doing it. So I ended up joining a mastermind group, which is a fancy way of saying a group of people came together, like-minded people, all interested in, at this time, it was multifamily real estate. Everyone paid money to get in. I kind of finessed my way through some negotiations and some value add. But these are people who all are serious about real estate, and they, when people are paying to get somewhere, it's like, okay, these people are on a different level.
Exactly.
And literally, like, if someone said to me when I was 19, hey, you have to pay $5,000 to network with people who all have a lot of money and will actually help you get there, I'd be like, that $5,000 to just meet people like that sounds stupid. And then you do it, and then you're like, oh my God, like this is this is basically free. So got into that group, and I had so many different mentors within the group alone. And before I even got to my first deal, I was doing so many different things for so many different people and mentors of mine. I had one guy, he was based in New York. We were looking at properties in Tennessee. I was his underwriting guy. I was analyzing everything. So I basically did just a ton of that, like working for people for free. I did one guy, he was out of Ohio, and he's like, hey, can you write me like news articles or blog posts? I'm like, sure. And I just did a lot of research. I'm not a writer at all. I'm terrible at it. I just did it. And those things ended up not actually leading to any deals. So I did like the blog writing for a while. I did the underwriting for someone for a while. Nothing actually led somewhere. Did it a handful of times. Found someone who was like, hey, I need some help finding deals. Can you like cold call and text people? And that's what ended up turning into a deal.
I see. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people, I think, as far as being in a paid group or a membership, I could have thought the same thing too at one point. It's like, why can't we all just help each other? Why do we all have to pay for it? Well, it really does separate the wheat from the chaff. It really separates those who are serious and those who are just there to kick tires. And I really noticed that when we joined. We're in a couple different programs, but it's amazing too the amount that you pay. Sometimes, I mean, you definitely want to vet your groups. You want to really check them and make sure they're legit and you're getting your money's worth. But as a rule of thumb, the more expensive groups weed out more, and we really found that to be true too. And we've really benefited from having a mentor.
For sure.
I think my last question for you for today is, what are you going to do now? What are some of your plans? What are you looking to do over the next couple years?
Yeah, so it's so hard for me to think like a couple of years, because it's like once you start going, it's like every month, like, oh my God, I thought that was gonna take me years, and now it's just taking 2 months. Oh my God, like this is crazy. So all I know right now is my goal for 2023 is to get to $10,000 of cash flow as soon as possible. My strategy to get there is basically going to be buying houses valued at around $115,000 in the Midwest, furnishing them, putting them on, Airbnb and renting them as short-term and mid-term rentals. Each property. So right now I have one that's already up and running. It's basically, it's going to cash flow like $1,500 a month, but I'm just like, let's just say it's $1,000 because I want to be extra conservative there. I'm under contract on another one right now, so that'll be $2,000 per month. And my goal is just to get 10 of those and then reevaluate. I definitely want to get into larger properties, and I want to do like boutique hotels and just continue to expand on the buying side. The coasting side is kind of on autopilot right now. I have a team managing it. I have someone finding more clients for me. I get more referrals. That's pretty much on autopilot. But the buying side is where I am focusing my efforts as far as my wealth goes. My goal for 2023 is to end the year with a minimum of $20,000 per month in net cash flow from my own personal rental properties. So I got to get to 10 as fast as possible. I'll be at 2,000 pretty shortly once this deal closes. But then it's just like, how can I get 8 more of those? And then switch my focus to go a little bit bigger. But if I can get the $10,000 per month from properties, like that will be, I'd feel good with that. And then if I can deploy another strategy, because one quick note on it too, I actually checked my bank account this morning for the property I bought about a month or two ago, and there was like $4,000 sitting in the account now. I put in $1,000 before, so there's really $3,000 of brand new money created in that account. And I'm like, if I just wait a couple more months, it's going to be at like, if I said each month $1,000 of actual profit, it's going to be at $10,000 before you know it. And then I have this other property I'm buying, that's going to be at $10,000 before you know it. So then it's like, I could just use the money that I am generating from these properties, combine them together, buy more properties. And obviously you got to keep reserves, all that fun stuff. But I was like, geez, like this is a huge compound effect that's going to be happening with just the money that my rentals are creating. So yeah, those are my goals right now. Strictly cash flow based. I don't care about appreciation right now. I care strictly about the cash flow.
That's awesome.
That's kind of the 2023 goal. At least the first half. Anything could change after that.
No, I hear you, and I love how each year. I mean, you're reassessing, and everybody has to do that. We got this done. We didn't quite get this. We need to kind of reassess, evaluate our whole portfolio. How are we doing? But I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Bailey, you've added so much value. I really appreciate it. If people want to get a hold of you, do you have any specific ways that they can reach you?
Yeah, best way is Instagram. I'm really I'm on all the social medias, but I'm probably most responsive on Instagram. So shoot me a DM, tell me you heard me on this podcast. I always respond. So yeah, if you want to reach out to me there, I'm on Facebook. Feel free to friend me. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. So look me up and you'll find me, and happy to chat.
All right. Well, thank you, Bailey. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story, the choices that you have made, and really what just helped propel you to become successful in such a short period of time. Thanks so much for joining me today. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you took the time to invest in yourself and to learn with me today. If you're interested in joining a group of like-minded people, I want to personally invite you to our free networking group where you can make connections and build relationships with people who are working together to generate wealth. Just click the link that is included in the show notes, and I hope to see you there.